In the ancient city of Paralon, nestled between two great rivers, there lived a merchant named Dorian. Dorian was not a foolish man by nature. He was skilled in trading spices and silks, and he was regarded as shrewd by his peers. Yet for all his success, Dorian had a flaw. He reasoned swiftly and often cared little for the truth of his thoughts, so long as they served his immediate purposes. One season, the rains began earlier than expected. The rivers swelled, murmuring against their banks. The city elders who had long studied the rivers and the seasons gathered and spoke to the merchants and craftsmen. "Strengthen the flood walls, move your goods to higher ground. The rivers will rise." Dorian scoffed at the council's warning. "Every year they say the same," he told his apprentices. "Every year a little water spills into the streets, and the old men call it a flood. I will keep my wares in the warehouse by the lower docks, for there is where the caravans arrive. To move them now would be costly and foolish." An apprentice, a boy named Leontius, hesitated and said, "Master, the rains are heavier this year. Perhaps it would be wise to prepare." But Dorian, confident in his past experiences, waved him off. "Past is prologue," he said. "What was before will be again. No more, no less." Satisfied with his conclusion, Dorian continued his business. He reasoned that because the floods had never harmed him before, they never would. He valued ease and profit above caution, and so he built his choices on a narrow, brittle foundation. Meanwhile, a stonemason named Cato, a man little known and little regarded, heard the same warnings. Though he lived near Dorian and shared the same risks, Cato pondered differently. He did not say, "It has never happened before, so it never will." Instead, he thought, "The rivers have their own laws, and I must prepare myself to meet them, not presume they will meet me." He moved his few valuables to the upper quarters of the city. He sealed his workshop doors with tar and sandbags, and he made peace with the thought that even with his efforts, he might still lose. 3 nights later, the flood came. It came not as a slow trickle, but as a roaring wall, fed by rains far upriver. The lower docks were swallowed whole. Warehouses, goods, and hopes vanished into muddy torrents. Dorian's precious wares, uninsured and unguarded, were ruined. When the waters receded days later, Dorian stood before the wreckage of his fortune. His apprentices had fled. His creditors circled him like crows. He sat in the mud and cursed the gods, cursed the rain, cursed the river, and cursed the council of elders. At length, when his voice grew hoarse, he trudged to the city center where Cato, now offering to help rebuild broken homes, worked among the people. Dorian, seeing the stonemason's humble but intact livelihood, grew bitter and demanded, "Why should you have survived with so little, while I, with all my planning, have lost everything?" Cato, wiping dust from his hands, answered simply, "You built your choices on wishes. I built mine on nature. The river cares nothing for our plans. It moves by its own reason, not by ours." "But how was I to know?" Dorian cried. "There was no certainty it would flood." "Certainty is not needed to act wisely," Cato said. "Only understanding that life is not bound to our past experiences, but to the nature of things as they are. You reasoned badly because you reasoned for comfort, not for truth." Dorian, stung by the words but seeing their justice, lowered his head. In the weeks that followed, Dorian labored beside Cato and the others, learning to rebuild what he had lost. He had once thought himself too grand for such humble work, but now, stripped of his wealth and his illusions, he found a different kind of profit, the discipline of clear thinking and honest labor. Years later, when the rivers again threatened to flood, a new generation of merchants debated whether to heed the warnings of the council. They turned to Dorian, now a gray-bearded and respected elder. And Dorian said to them, "The mind is like a ship. If it is badly built, it will sink at the first rough wave. Build yours carefully. Test every plank, every nail. Reason not to comfort yourself, but to align with what is true. For bad reasoning leads not merely to bad choices, it leads to ruin." The merchants listened, and the city of Paralon endured many more floods, wiser for the pebbles of truth laid carefully at its foundations. If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share.